Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Nice to see you. My name's Dustin Cormier. Today you're watching How to Rock Astrology. In particular, our episode today, we're going to be talking about Libra Moon with Aquarius Venus. And this is considered to be Venus in the Moon's 5th house. And I'm sorry for those who might have been thinking otherwise, but in Vedic astrology, we generally consider that Venus being in trine to the moon is not the best thing. Thankfully, this might not be as strong as what you typically. It's not as strong as the 9th house trine. When Venus is in the 9th house from the moon, it especially has difficulty. It's almost as bad as a conjunction. This comes from the Vedic astrology idea that, there's so many different ways to interpret these things, but in Vedic astrology, there's a good argument for the fact that basically the planets have friendships in Vedic astrology that Westerners have not gotten the concept of. There's lots of things that Western astrology has that Vedic astrology doesn't, but this is one of the things that Vedic astrology has that I'm trying to teach the West. Essentially, any interactions with the moon and Venus are not good. Even a trine. A trine is not necessarily always a good thing, at least by Vedic astrology reckoning, particularly when the two planets are not friends. Now, Venus is not an enemy to the moon, but the moon is an enemy to Venus. The reason is because the moon is more primary. The moon is a more basic, essential, primary nature of our ego. And the ego has to instinctively grab for what it needs first in order to survive, in order to get along in life. So it is always going to unconsciously project a deeper need, or a deeper need for some kind of the deliciousness of Venus, which comes from oneself, which is enjoyable to the moon, but it can obstruct relationships. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about it, and you're going to hopefully see what I mean by this. Don't be bummed out by it. I always recommend that, it's always good to have a different sense of yourself through different cultural vantages and lenses. And no matter what is given, it's just good to have this kind of different aspect of self-knowledge. So I challenge you to watch this video and consider what is being said. Because no matter what kind of standing all of your planets have, it's just our astral sphere. And if we apply self-realization, we can make anything that we are work to the best possible result. No matter how debilitated anything in your chart is, if you have the right therapist and if you have the right counselor and the right astrologer, you can put it in a way that it serves you rather than it is being a detriment. I digress. We're going to do a little intro here that I do for all these videos before we start. We're going to talk about the Sun, Venus, and Moon. So, you might have watched my other series where I talked about the Sun and Mars and sexuality. And we talked about how the Sun is the king. It's us. It's our essential nature. And the Moon is the queen. The Moon is a crescent sliver of our Sun's basic inner nature. It's our earthly subconscious, whose sign, house, and aspects reveal the form that our sun energy has to subside and subsist through. It's the classic husband and wife inside of all of us, essentially. Regardless of what your gender is, every soul, every person has an anima and an animus. It's the yin and yang aspects of our Ajna chakra. So the husband is what he is. We've all seen how this kind of plays out. But he is refined by his wife, who gives a rhythm and a healthy ceiling, a realistic ceiling for the sun's potentials. The sun, and this is when, ideally, when the moon is working properly, then we understand what we actually are on Earth and the personality that we like to enjoy ourselves through, instead of just being purely the sun, which is not good for anybody. Think of it this way, the husband says to the wife, honey, I'm thinking of having a big, delicious piece of blueberry pie. And the wife says, now, honey, you know what that does to your blood sugar? The husband could ignore his wife in this regard and just be the sun, but he's going to run into trouble. He's going to be obstructed. He's going to find pain and suffering because his body is of a certain temperament that can't digest sugar in this way. So whatever that temperament is that we are, that's the moon in us, knowing what we can actually realistically do with our sun nature and what we want to do with it. So if we didn't need to eat, to sleep, to have sex, to enjoy friendship and subjective things, to have a family, like the moon, this is the moon. The moon is what we are. The sun is what we are at noon, in the noonday, when we are doing what we do. But once we're done our job, we go home and we associate with friends and people around us who are the world that we keep while we're not doing our career and our thing in life, right? The type of partner that we want to have, the rhythm of our lives. This is all the moon. So if we didn't need to eat, sleep, have sex, enjoy friendship, etc., we would infinitely express the sun, but that's not the case. We need to eat. We need to sleep. We need to have sex to a general degree. And this is our base. The moon is this basic part of our personality that we meet the world through. So if anyone wants to get in our personal quarters, they must do so through the queen, i.e. the moon. Venus is the sun's self-enjoyment, style. Venus is how we express affection. It's our sun's outgoing desire. But whatever Venus attracts is subject to the subconscious reaction complex of the moon. And this in combination in particular is Libra Moon with Aquarius Venus. So we know that the moon in Libra is a social person. It's very reflective. It likes to reflect itself. It likes to reflect what others around it are, what their behaviors are. It likes to know and understand the behaviors of the other person and, the nurturing that it does for itself, how it really survives a lot in life and feels validated and feels like it's on Earth having fun and being joyful, is when it is being receptive to another person's nature, when they see another person and they basically want to cater to it. It's something as simple as like when a Libra moon person sees a dog scratching at the door, they'll be one of the first people to just see, oh, this is what's happening in my immediate environment. And they go and they'll open the door and let the dog out before anybody else kind of does, because this is just, it's a subliminal unconscious thing of the moon in Libra. They want to let the dog out for themselves and for all the people around them. So whatever your likes are, the moon in Libra person will find them out and ask you. Moon in Libra will just ask you, what do you want for your birthday? What do you want for Christmas? What kind of gift would you like? And ultimately, the moon in Libra, just whether they do it directly or indirectly, kind of depends on the Venus. This is a type of person who will probably, especially with the Venus in Aquarius, is just kind of outgoing like this and is just sort of like unemotional, doesn't put too much value on psychic response, on knowing the temperament or attitude of how somebody would like something. Moon in Libra with Venus in Aquarius is probably just out there and upfront of like, okay, what's going on here? What do you want? How can I give it to you? Let's not make a big deal about it per se. It's just we both have wants and likes, and let's just do them so we can get them out of the way so we can keep going on and living the lives that we're living. Moon in Libra is reflective in this way. Wants a deep love partner. Wants their love partner to love them like they love the love partner. They're romantic. Moon in Libra is romantic. But it's, for the most part, it has this romanticness and it wants to be deeply loved by the partner. But the Moon in Libra tends to go by, surface things in a certain way. Although those surface things, they basically employ them in order to get across the soul's moon desire soul nature. So they will use the superficial things and behaviors and see them. They'll even have a good psychological sense in a certain way. And they will understand the other person and apply themselves to what they understand about the other person and hope that the other person appreciates it and hope that the other person's also a little bit that way themselves, so that the Moon in Libra person doesn't become basically like a doormat. You know what I mean? Now, that sort of thing can happen with the Moon in Libra, but the Venus will show the self-love that the Moon has. For a Moon in Libra, Venus shows how you stop yourself from becoming that doormat. It's like, what is the medium through which you apply your service that you want to give to the other person, and how you enjoy doing it for yourself, and whether it's really important for you, whether you put a value on independence. Now, the Venus in Aquarius does desire independence. That's by sign, there's a good thing happening there, typically. Venus actually does well in Aquarius. At least by dignity and by sign, this Venus is well placed. Venus in Aquarius, well, basically, Saturn is a friend to Venus. This is something that we understand again in Vedic astrology. Saturn, when Venus is in a sign ruled by a friend, it is going to cater, the behavior that it expresses caters to the function of that planet. Saturn and Mercury are friends of Venus. You'll notice that I always say, Venus rules an earth sign and an air sign, Taurus and Libra. Saturn also rules an earth sign and air sign, Capricorn and traditionally, anciently, Aquarius. So Saturn is the ancient energetic ruler of Aquarius, even though Westerners do say that there's a secondary octave being applied by Uranus. So this Venus is in the sign of a friend, and it's well disposed here because there's an independence involved with Venus in Aquarius that's healthy for Venus. It can account in a fixed way for its own enjoyment and its own way to contribute things to a partnership. It doesn't get so sucked up into the partnership and into the awareness of the other person that it doesn't have its own life that keeps it stable. Because sometimes there's that classic old phrase, absence makes the heart fonder. And Venus in Aquarius knows this better than anybody else. When you have a life outside of your partner, it makes the life that you have with your partner that much more enjoyable. Venus in Aquarius knows this better than anybody else. But there's a problem with this particular combination that I've talked about from the start. And this theme that we're talking about of this independence, unfortunately, is going to be, in some way, it will be a detriment. I mean, it's good because this is a good Venus situation here. So at least the Venus has some dignity that it can help stave off from what is this starvation. But the Moon in Libra is casting a fifth house aspect, a fifth house trine on the Venus. And again, the Moon is an enemy to Venus. So what happens here is that the independence, which would typically be good for the Moon in Libra, this independence gets overblown and you actually lose your sense of receptivity to other people because you're so concerned with your own self-enjoyment. Don't let me hit you with this too hard. I'm just trying to convey what is being, what the energetic expression is here. The Moon in Libra, actually, when you think about it, there's potential for some difficulty here because the moon in Libra is actually one sign away from its debilitation in Scorpio, right? The moon is debilitated in Scorpio. And debilitation, as I often say, works by proximity, not by just purely by sign. So you're not out of the woods by being with the moon in Libra. You're not out of the woods of debilitation. It's still very close to its debilitation point. That is to say that while the moon is reflective, it's the moon. It wants to feel validated by doing what the moon does. With the moon in Libra, being so close to Scorpio, it's almost like there's a selfish impulse to the service and to the reflection that the moon does. It's like it gets peeved if the other person doesn't appreciate or deeply enjoy the usefulness that the moon in Libra serves. And the moon in Libra gets frustrated when the other person doesn't give them things to serve them through. Right? Now, here lies the rub. Moon in Libra, which is already a sort of self-serving server, being in trine to the Venus in Aquarius, the moon is going to starve the Venus in Aquarius. And what's going to happen is that the Venus in Aquarius, which is already enjoys independence, but really what it wants to do is it wants to enjoy its independence in order that it can more fully enjoy the relationship, especially with the moon in Libra. So what happens here is that the moon in Libra deeply wants the partner to enjoy the service that the moon in Libra provides, but it has to be catered to how the moon in Libra with Venus in Aquarius wants to serve. And it gets offended that you aren't accepting my service. You're not accepting, like, I do so much for you is kind of like probably a common phrase for this person, you know, like, I think so much, I do so much stuff for you, and you could see it, I listen to you, and I've done everything that you say. So why are we having frustrations? Well, part of the reason is because just because you make a laundry list of things that you've asked the partner what they want, and you've checked them all off and done it, and you're like, okay, good, you should be happy now. Now I'm going to go off and do my thing, my self-enjoyment. Or, let me go through this whole laundry list, So if the person doesn't care to give you that laundry list, then you're going to be frustrated at some level because you're not going to know how to serve your partner. Although you voice it, you ask, and that is a good thing and that helps you do your thing. But it comes off as mechanical, especially, Aquarius, Saturn energy. Because the moon is starving Venus here, the moon being trine to that Venus, the moon wants to serve in the way that it likes to serve. And so it can be mechanical without actually feeling at some deep level what the other person, like how much service the other person wants, when they want to be served, and why they want to be served. And, these are all things that the Venus and Aquarius person tries to understand from an intellectual point of view and will just try to talk to the other person about. And they won't understand when the person has emotional wavelengths that don't cater to this plan that we've discussed about how to make ourselves fulfill ourselves and enjoy each other. The moon in Libra is too desperate to be of use and to be emotionally close and valued to the other person, but yet at the same time they're kind of away from it because really the moon in Libra person, for their own sake, actually wants to enjoy social things. They want to do just enough for the partner so that they can go off and enjoy a kind of a healthy social circle outside of themselves and the partner. And when people look at the moon in Libra, who has Venus in Aquarius, with their partner, interacting with their partner, people might be like, wow, do they really, they're together all the time. And the Venus and Aquarius person just asks them, like, what time do you want to go home? Have you had too much to drink? Like, all these sorts of things. They're always doing these routine checks. It's like, oh, you're good? Okay, I'm going to go talk to my best friend Steve in the corner here. Hope you enjoy whatever you're doing at the party, but I'm going to go talk to Steve now that you're all figured out. And then so people never actually see them interacting with a heartfelt juiciness, at least unless your nature is more receptive, unless you've got things that are, if you've got a benefic moon and it's delighted somehow, you're gonna find your emotional enjoyment. If the moon is well supported, it'll find its emotional enjoyment elsewhere, which means it won't have such a deep need to have a perfectly procured list of routine ways of showing that we love each other or showing that we are secure together. If the moon is afflicted by anything, if it's got Saturn with it especially or something like that, or if the moon is conjunct Saturn, or if it's conjunct Mars or anything difficult sort of like this, then there will be a deep need for security, which no amount of laundry lists of mutual affection will ever satisfy until you, the Moon and Libra person, starts to meditate and let go of your emotional need to constantly be affirmed in your security. If so, you've got to find some kind of way to meditate, to let go, to get out of the airy headspace that you're in and out of your head and into just forgiveness and acceptance and just saying, I'm here, I'm present, and I want to be with you. And, if you meditate, you're going to find other ways to enjoy that in yourself without needing it to come from the other partner. So I've talked a lot about the nature of the moon in Libra here already, but to give it short thrift, we're going to read from Erotic Astrology by Phyllis Vega. This particular, the lovemaking nature of moon in Libra. The moon in Libra's approach to lovemaking is glamorous and alluring. You appreciate the intricate rituals of old-fashioned courtship, and you enjoy being wooed with finesse and sophistication. This is the moon in Libra, likes the other person to be thinking and to put in a lot of time and effort into how they approach you, and because you kind of do this for them. And you'd love for them to just drizzle the roses up the stairs to a bottle of champagne in the bathtub. All those little details are things that you will enjoy the person doing for you. Although, really, like Aquarius Venus doesn't necessarily, they'll enjoy that, and they don't need too much of it. They will feel lovely about that kind of thing. But ultimately, the Venus in Aquarius also just kind of wants to be able to chat and chill and do something exciting with a group, really. The most exciting romance that the Moon and Libra person with Venus and Aquarius will ever get is when you're chatting with people in a social situation, and there's lots of people who could take up your attention, but the one unique person, you are probably a unique person, and you'll find another unique person who probably has some other Aquarian edge or Gemini or some kind of airy thing to them where they're unique and they're eccentric. And your deepest deliciousness will come when there's the temptation of many people in a social situation, but you know that the person that you enjoy talking to the most is this person. And you want to cater to them and serve them and to be as enjoyable to them as they are for you. And if that exchange happens with all the other shit going on, that's the kind of partner that you want. Also, you want a partner who won't stop you from enjoying the greater happenings going on outside of your relationship. It's a detachment there. The moon in Libra is romantic and wants a deep connection, wants to feel secure, but ultimately the Venus in Aquarius is and the moon in Libra is socially outgoing and wants to be pulled into intimate romance at a certain regard, to have everybody say, like you are the type of person who would love for your partner in a social situation to be talking and to say, well, that's just why I love this sweet thing over here. And it's just like, oh, thank you, baby. Thank you. And now let's just keep talking about what we were talking about. There's the little thing in there, the little bit of Moon in Libra that will give you the feeling there. And then everything else is juicy. And focused on the goings on outside of, again, your intimate relationship with that person. So you can be somebody who has to work out jealousy issues, especially if the moon is malefic or afflicted in any way, which the moon's not afflicted here, although again, it's close to Scorpio. So it's close to its debilitation. It doesn't instinctively feel secure and satisfied, typically. So if there's any kind of affliction, you might have to deal with jealousy in these social things. Because again, your greatest enjoyment comes when you just naturally appreciate what the person is in their personality and in their nature. And you are hoping desperately that spark stays there forever. Because if it doesn't, it's really, that friendship is what you base your romances on. And if anybody else is more friendly naturally without trying to your partner than you are, then you're probably going to feel like your security is at risk. But mind you, you can get over that jealousy and that insecurity if you understand what the moon is and apply the right meditation techniques to let go of, to satisfy yourself emotionally with your partner. Find ways to secure the trust and security so that you don't get all wrapped up in this dynamic. So, that was me just shooting the shit. Now we're going to go for Erotic Astrology by Phyllis Vega. This is the Moon in Libra with Venus and Aquarius in a combined reading. You are somebody who does genuinely love people, but you often fail to communicate on an emotional level because you find strong feelings somewhat embarrassing. Or just saying them at the party, again, like you're not necessarily going to want to be too emotionally attached in that, at least extraneously, even though you probably actually are inside. It's a difficult thing for this moon in particular to try to be about. So typically, though, at a party, your gregarious intellect reaches out to those around you and responds to any indication of mental rapport. Where long-term commitments are concerned, Aquarius' need for independence is constantly at odds with Libra's belief that life is incomplete without a partner, without another half. Your best romantic relationship may well be one that begins as a friendship and slowly evolves into a physical bond. Between the sheets, there's a decided uniqueness to your lovemaking. You're creative in bed without ever being vulgar. It's the moon in Libra is not typically one to be really vulgar per se. There are other things that can kind of change this around, but usually the moon in Libra is so sensitive and there's a purity that they idealize. So, depending on where the things are in your chart, you might be well served to have somebody pull you into a dirtiness in order that you can get clean. So, that can be a thing, but typically Moon in Libra is really more about the romance, the enjoyment outside of the juicy sexuality of things, and a social outgoingness that just wants to be admired and liked and to be easygoing. Although you can be hard-headed about things and you enjoy doing that for its own sake, that's just something enjoyable about Venus and Aquarius. You're forthright. And you put out forthrightness. You want to be able to talk openly about wild, crazy social things because Venus's outgoing nature for the sun of whatever your sun is in Aquarius, right? So I hope this was clarifying. I hope this brought you guys some clarity. I'm Dustin Cormier for How to Rock Astrology. This has been Libra Moon with Venus and Aquarius. Stay tuned. We are going to keep the ball rolling here with more stuff that I got coming out in the future. Let me know in the comments if you enjoyed this, and I'll see you guys on the next episode.